Thanks so much, and thanks for the warm welcome. It's great to see everyone here today, and I hope you've had a wonderful trip and a great morning. And it's a delight to be here with you two. You're both, of course, such renowned global experts. I'd really love to hear, to start with, your top 3 things that are going to be challenges for global educators and policymakers at present.
Thank you for a good question. Because today's theme is education at crossroads. And when you say education is at crossroads, I think it's not about choosing between 2 different paths in the opposite direction. Rather, it is all about creating a new path together. So big challenges here, 3 challenges. First one, trust in public institutions, including trust in ministers. Education minister has radically declined. And this really make it hard to build support for education. And second, shorter and unstable political cycles. That has weakened our ability, government ability, to sustain long-term policies like education. Third, many people doubt that deep educational change is even possible. They are unfortunately losing hopes, including Korean leaders and parents and students. So these 3 challenges are quite serious, and they should be addressed domestically, but also addressed globally.
Juho, thank you so much. And Andreas?
You know, I think the number 1 is really that education has always been at crossroads. It's nothing new. Basically, the hardest thing for an educator today, a teacher today, is that you have to live the future today that you want to see in your students tomorrow. And society is not with you. You know, we as parents get very worried when our children learn things we no longer understand, or when they no longer think that was important for us. And as a teacher, it's much easier to teach how you were taught than how you were taught to teach. And as a policymaker, you can lose an election when something small goes wrong in education, but you're not going to win an election because it takes so much time to translate good ideas into better outcomes. So I think that tension between the present and the future, and what makes it tougher today is just the speed of change. In the past, you could see that future. Today, you know, you do not know what's going to happen tomorrow, the uncertainty related to this. But I think this crossroads, I think, is incredibly important. The second part, you know, I do put artificial intelligence in that. And I'm not worried that artificial intelligence will become human. I'm more worried that we as humans degrade important human capabilities to become more like AI, more like we have seen that in the industrial age. We lost a lot of human capabilities because we try to adapt to the norms of machines. And I think that's the biggest threat that, you know, young people outsource their thinking. You know, we have done experiments where people write essays with ChatGPT and they get better products. But when you test their writing skills afterwards, you see actually that they do worse, or that they can't remember even what they had written. I think those are the real risks, that, you know, AI will infantilize us as humans. And the third challenge is really about equity. Again, it's not a new challenge, but in a challenge of a totally different dimension, you know, where the environment around your technology will super empower those with the right human skills and disempower those who are left behind. And I think that is going to be a far more tremendous challenge than we see today.
Those were profound words from both of you. So we've really touched already on trust, including in our politics. We've talked about equity or inequity and global divides. And of course, we've talked about technological change. Obviously, Andreas, you already touched on this in your keynote. I think we all recognize, don't we, that the rise of AI means that we sit at the cusp of a new era in education, and we're not sure of our directions yet. There are many risks and opportunities. And at the moment, relatively little evidence on which to make decisions, although, of course, this is building. As I said, Andreas, you've already begun to discuss this in your keynote, but it would be lovely to hear from both of you what you think to be the key risks and opportunities of an AI-infused education, and really what we can do to address those. Juho?
I think AI provides a really big opportunity for education, because you know that for the first time we are able to have quite effective tools to help teachers to transform their roles. You know that we, maybe for decades and centuries, we talked about transformation of teachers' role from knowledge transmitter to mentor, coach, guide, and role model. But this turned out to be really difficult, especially for public school system, right? So, but AI technology, Korea maybe have first-hand experience in recent years. I'm quite confident that AI can liberate teachers. That's the most important opportunity of AI in education, that we really have to make a focus on that. The risk side, I think, as I mentioned in my speech, if we lose the balance and maybe let AI dominate in the classroom, that could be perils. So we have to strike the balance between technology and humanity. So this is really high time to, as Andreas emphasized, we really have to think about human flourishing, and maybe the citizenship education you emphasize. Those kind of things that we have neglected so far should be re-emphasized while we are utilizing AI proactively to change the roles of teachers.
Thank you so much. And that theme of human flourishing really resonates, of course. I guess the question is going to be the how. And Andreas, you mentioned that already during the pandemic, you know, we saw, I guess, the impact for many young people who couldn't access a face-to-face classroom teacher. Again, you began to elaborate in your keynote about the potential impact of AI. Can you say more?
Yeah, you know, I think the opportunities all lie on the how. You know, I mean, the greatest, you know, opportunity is personalization. And while you study mathematics, AI can figure out how you learn and then make your learning experience so much more granular, so much more adaptive. AI is starting to make learning fun. I mean, that's also really important, you know, engaging people. Why would you listen to the results of a scientific experiment when you can do that experiment in a virtual laboratory? I mean, that just, or learning analytics. As a teacher, you can see how different students learn differently and then adapt your experience. I think these are all tremendous opportunities that, as Juho said, that they're going to transform teaching. The role of teachers will, I think, fundamentally shift. You will have real-time information about your students, and I think also strengthen that relationship. I would see the challenges more on the what question. And I think the reference to the pandemic is really relevant. I think what the pandemic has shown us is that learning is not a transactional business. It's a social, a relational experience. And we see that in PISA, the strongest predictor on student learning outcomes, and more important in student engagement as lifelong learners, is the quality of student-teacher relationships. We ask students a very simple question, you know. If you come back to your school 3 years from now, do you think your teacher is going to be excited to see you? And where students say yes, you actually see they're motivated, they're engaged, they're proactive learners. Where students say no, learning becomes a consumption of prefabricated content. So I think, again, that human social relationship, that is, but I think on the challenges of AI really lie more on the what question. What should we learn? My greatest concern is that we do give up important human qualities, human skills. And in a way, when calculators were introduced, we gave up routine mathematical operation. You can debate about it. Was it a good thing or a bad thing? I think, people are divided on that. But that was about giving up routine processes. I can still see the merits of this. Now we are at the risk to give up important judgment, important thinking. And that is as humans, the reality is we've always been, tempted to trade in our autonomy against convenience. And particularly for students from disadvantage, this may be just a very attractive value proposition. I'm not going to plan to go to university. Why do I need to learn those kinds of things? And I think that's the greatest risk, that we trade in, our human autonomy for something that makes things easier. As humans, we're always also much better to invent new tools than to use them wisely. I think that's also a reality. And we throw a lot of things into classrooms. And actually, I think the experience of Korea is one of the very few ones where you can actually see a strategy behind the deployment of technology. In most of our education systems, there has been no plan. It's really about, let's see how this works. And I think the what question, what should we learn, what should we teach, is one that we should not leave to technology. That's something where intention is going to be incredibly important. That's where the biggest risks are.
Thanks so much. So this intentionality and this reflection, of course, is an opportunity for us all today. It was just mentioned that I've just completed a review of curriculum and assessment in England. And one of our reflections was that in a world of such rapid change, technological, geopolitical, as we've been discussing, ecological in terms of climate change and so forth, we really need to focus more on our civic and citizenship education. And we, as a result, made this mandatory in the elementary system in England for the first time. And I'm wondering if I can ask you both what your recommendations would be for a citizenship program for our present times. Juho?
Yeah, that because you are in Hong Kong and I'm from Korea, I want to emphasize the Confucian traditional thinking about education that is widely shared in Korean people still until now. It's 지덕체 education. Maybe it's Chinese character. Ji means intelligence. 덕 means virtue. And che means physical well-being. So even in my school days, I was taught to have a balanced learning about three key elements in education. But I think recently, and maybe for 20, 30 years so far, we have just emphasized the intelligence side, neglecting the virtue and physical well-being of students. And now it's time to give a balance between three. And so the citizenship education and human flourishing, we really think it hard how to introduce these two, the dimensions into education while utilizing new technology like AI. So this is really the big challenge, but still an opportunity.
That's wonderful to hear. So you feel that we could learn a lot, perhaps in the West, about a more holistic cultivation aspect in education. That's fascinating. Thank you. Andreas?
I think also this question of citizenship is really the question of our times. How do we find our right place in our societies? The sense of identity. Where are we and where will we be tomorrow? And I think that the risks with citizenship is that it's simply reduced to, an attachment to some national kind of ideas and values. And I think for me, the citizenship concept really is a concept of empathy. Empathy to relate to people who are different from us, who live in different cultures and traditions. And I think to see yourself in the mirror of others. That's why, in our work at the OECD, we prefer to talk about global competency, really. Can you see this world through different lenses and perspectives? Can you appreciate different ways of thinking? Can you think like a philosopher and think like an artist? Can you empathize with people from different cultures? And some people see that, detracts from citizenship. I would disagree with this. The best way to understand your own language is to learn a foreign language. When you learn a foreign language, it's the first time that you start to think about your identity, your own language, grammar, vocabulary, all those things that are innate from us. And I think the same with this citizenship education. Citizenship can help you reflect on who you are in light of how other people live. But I do think the idea in the world in which we live is really to connect us to people who are different from us and to live together in a way that we are challenged to do. I mean, in a way, that's another risk of technology, that technology insulates us from divergent perspectives. It amplifies our own views. You can live in a bubble that is, made up by your own beliefs and ideas, and I think citizenship education can be the antidote to that. It can connect us around and create, a better, more interconnected world. We have, achieved a lot of globalization on the economic front. I think over the last century we have been really good at connecting our economies, but we have actually been far less good in building more of that empathy and connectedness at the human level.
Yes, thank you for that. And perhaps, of course, we're seeing the effect of that in some of our politics now. Obviously, Juho, you mentioned at the beginning the issue about trust, including trust in politicians. And when we've talked about AI, obviously one of the dangers that sit behind our discussions is about the increase in misinformation, disinformation, and so on. All of these trends, I guess, highlight the importance of evidence and research evidence in education. How can we best infuse research evidence into policy making and practice?
I think evidence-based policy is more important than ever right now. And but the major challenge is that our measurement tools, especially in the other dimensions other than intelligence, has been quite limited. As Andreas already showed us in various different measures of education done by OECD, I think I really appreciate OECD's hard work on creating new measures, but still it's not widely accepted in different countries, in different policymakers and so forth. So, but the technology is providing here in this area another chance, because you know that through big data and AI system, maybe you can measure not just the outcome, but the process of learning and other dimensions of learning as well. So, but you know that I think we have not given full resources and energies on creating more reliable and useful data and measurement. Otherwise, evidence-based policy has so far have a lot of limitation. As a policymaker, I haven't really. I really want to try to base my policy on evidence, but the evidence is really not enough to be utilized for the policymakers. So how to create evidence through more creative way of collecting data, not just the drawing on existing data, but we have to think about how to create the new measurement, and utilize a big data and AI system to be able to have new measurement. So I'd like to actually suggest, echoing the Andreas' speech, maybe you can think about human flourishing index, including new measurement, so that that could really can help policymakers in other countries, in every countries, to rethink and redefine education and try to make a fundamental change in education based on the evidence.
Thanks so much, and Andreas.
Yeah, I think, Becky, you raise a really important point. And I think there are two angles to this. One is to have better tools and instruments and better ways to relate evidence to practice. And I actually think, your work with the Education Endowment Foundation is the gold standard, really, for that part. But the deeper issue really is about mindset. And I think it's true both among practitioners and policymakers. At the level of practitioners, education is still often considered, some art, it's about intuition. And I don't want to make it less of an art, but it needs to become more of a science. There needs to be a deeper understanding among practitioners that good practice can be replicated, that good ideas can be scaled. And I think we're still very, very far away from that. Same at the level of policy. One thing when I started our work at the OECD that really struck me was that in the health sector, we invest 17 times as much in innovation and research than in education. It's not twice as much, it's not 3 times as much, it's 17 times as much. It really shows us that education has become a gigantic machine that runs on its own, but it is not informed, inspired by what we know about the future and what is known about good practice. And I think that is the question of mindset that we see among practitioners, and that's the hardest thing to change, and then a mindset that we see among politicians. I just follow what my electorate really wants to see. I'm not really necessarily following what good practice really tells me to do, and changing this. I personally have learned a lot, also about the mechanisms. We have often still this idea, you have an academic, I publish a great idea, I put it in the public, and tomorrow it's going to transform education. It will change nothing. These kind of linear ways of information dissemination just do not reach people in practice. The only way to change this is to engage the people at the front line in the development, creation of ideas. And I've learned a lot actually from countries like China on that, where teachers themselves are researchers, where teachers who are regularly engaged in observing classroom practice are engaged in all of this. And I think that's the culture of evidence that will be sustainable and transformative for actually evidence generation, use, and application is part of the whole process now. And again, in the medical sector, if you're a doctor, you participate in clinical trials. It's very natural to you. And I think we need to develop that culture in education.
Thank you so much. Well, that's a resounding call, isn't it, to so many of you in the audience who are involved, of course, in particular programs and interventions in education, and all of those of you like myself who are involved in researching and actually documenting what works and what's effective practice to support policy making. You've given us a rousing call, both of you, and there are so many different ideas shared in what you've said. Thanks so much for sharing with us today. Thanks to you both. Thank you.